Hi to all succulent lovers, welcome to Life.Greenery, and today's topic would be succulents and cactus mix. I would like to share with you how do I DIY my succulents mix for myself, because it depends on the types of pots, the size of the pots, and where you put them. For plastic and ceramic pots that are both non-porous, that means when you do your succulent mix, please put more grits in it. Maybe 60% grits and 40% compost, or maybe you can put 80% or 70% grits and 30 or 20% compost in the mix to help with the drainage as well as aeration. And if you plant your succulents in terracotta pots, you can reduce the ratio of grits in your mix, because terracotta pots can help, it's porous, it can help to absorb the extra moisture in the soil. So you can still put 50% grits and 50% compost. It still depends on your watering habits. But for terracotta pots, you tend to water more often because it tends to dry up faster. Other than the types of pots, the size of the pot does matter. Okay? Small pots, the water dries up faster compared to big pots. So for small pots, you can have lesser grits because it still dried up fast. But for big pots, you need to put more grits because the roots need to have a very well aerated soil so that the oxygen and carbon dioxide can be exchanged in the medium to prevent root rot. So big pots, more grits. Small pot, you can cut down on the grits ratio. So let's talk about all the grits and medium for today. The best soil for succulents in pots will hold enough water for them to absorb what they need, but still dries up quickly so the roots won't rot. The best soil for succulents in my area may not be the same for your garden. If your area is dry and windy, using a large amount of water-retentive peat moss works just fine. However, if you are in locations with frequent rain like my area, it is important to look for greater drainage from your soil. There are many substrates in markets for you to choose from. Just choose what's best for your climate. Peat moss holds water, provides aeration, nutrient, and decomposes slowly. For my climate, which is hot and humid, peat moss is too dense for the succulents, and it tends to hold too much moisture and didn't dry up fast enough for my succulents at my house. So for my personal preference, I will only use 30% peat moss in my succulent mix. Coco coir or coco peat absorbs water easily and holds moisture well and drains well. It accepts water well once it is dry compared to peat moss. Peat moss is far more difficult to wet when it is dry. So you can either choose coco peat or peat moss as the base in your succulent soil, plus 50% of other gritty mix. The first gritty mix that I want to talk about is perlite. Adding perlite into the mixture helps with drainage. In other words, it helps the soil drain faster, which is exactly what we want for the succulent potting soil. Furthermore, they are relatively cheaper than the other gritty mix available in the market. However, perlite retains very little moisture, but it prevents soil compaction. And before using it, I would advise you to rinse the perlite in order to wash off the powder. And if you ask me, do I use it? No, I don't, as they easily crushed and they tend to float to the surface over time. But then, that's my own preference, and it is still one of the best components for well-draining mix, and a lot of people are using it. The second gritty mix is pumice. Pumice is very lightweight. It absorbs moisture and releases it slowly as the surrounding soil dries. Tiny pores in the rock also hold air pockets, helping to aerate the soil. It is naturally rich in micronutrients that are exceptional for healthy succulents. And unlike the featherweight perlite, pumice will not float up through the potting soil with each watering. So, do I use pumice? Yes, definitely. These are lava rocks, which you can see that there are many tiny holes in them. Same as pumice, Lava rock is good to aerate the soil and it has high water holding capacity. Lava rock is my all-time favorite mulch for my mix. I like to use them as top dressing of my succulents. Actually, there are two colors available. One is red and another is black. They both have the same function. However, the black lava rock tends to heat up faster under the hot sun, so it is advisable to be used with the indirect sun succulents mix or as top dressing. Next is zeolite. Zeolite is a volcanic rock which is rich in minerals. It helps to retain nutrients in the substrate, and those nutrients are not leached out during watering. The zeolite retains the same draining effect as pumice, as well as helping with aeration. And these are Maifan stones and Resiang stones that I mixed together. Maifan stones are hard granules that won't break down into smaller particles, which is good to be added into your mix. They will help with aeration and drainage. Using them as top dressing of your succulent soil is a good option as well. Next, we have the rice hulls. Rice hulls are one of the most sustainable soil amendments available for improving drainage, water holding capacity, and aeration. They feed the soil as they break down. Unlike perlite, pumice, vermiculite, rice hulls break down after one session of use, so this is good for adding organic matter into the soil. And next we have Akadama. The biggest advantage to use Akadama is that it has porosity, or the ability to hold water for a long period of time while draining unnecessary water given. Another advantage to use this soil would be in the color of Akadama, which can darken when moistened and thereby helping the beginners to know when to water the plant. However, in wetter climates, the granules of Akadama can easily break down into smaller particles, thus inhibiting the drainage. If it does, no worry, just report your plant. And do I use this? I use this to top dress my succulents or mix into my succulent soil. Next, these are clay pebbles, or we call that lacquer balls. These porous pebbles absorb moisture and allow for fantastic drainage of water from the roots of the plant. Not only do they absorb moisture, they will absorb any nutrient solution you added to your soil. The pores in the pebbles, the space between them, and their superior drainage function keeps air circulating, so roots get plenty of oxygen and they can last a long time. You just need to wash and reuse them as many times as you want. The last is vermiculite. Vermiculite is added to potting soil to increase water and nutrient retention, and it is less aerating than any other medium that I mentioned earlier. It is the amendment of choice for water-loving plants, and therefore I do not use vermiculite in my succulent mix. Nevertheless, I do use vermiculite to mix with peat for leaf propagation. So I will show you how do I mix my succulent soil. For me, I will use 50% peat moss and 50% gritty mix. And in this 50% gritty mix, it consists of lava rocks, Maifan stone, and zeolite. Okay, if you do not like this gritty mix, you can substitute it with pumice. If you want to save your cost, actually you can use pumice. Again, the same ratio, 50% peat moss and 50% pumice. However, if you are using a slightly bigger pots, then you can increase the percentage of pumice to, for example, 80% pumice and 20% peat moss. If your area rains frequently, you can actually increase the ratio of pumice compared to peat moss. For example, 80% pumice or 80% gritty mix, any other. Or for myself, I will actually put pumice into my mix together. So inside here, there are now with lava rocks, pumice, zeolite, miefan and Resiang stone. So 50% peat moss, and 50% gritty mix. As you can see, I do not use perlite in my medium mix, and I do not use vermiculite in my medium mix. And please don't forget to include the slow release fertilizer, Osmocote, into your mix as the base fertilizer. At the same time, you can also include the insecticide into the potting mix to prevent pests, especially mealybugs and spider mites. Insecticide is slightly poisonous, so you have to make sure that your pets and children do not touch it. And sometimes I will add 10% of the rice hulls into the soil. So that's how I mix my succulent soil. When you have a big plastic pot, you need to use clay pebbles, you can actually put the clay pebbles at the bottom for aeration, and afterwards just add in the soil that you have just mixed. This is for demonstration purpose, and I do not plant any succulents on it. Lastly, you can either top dressing your succulent mix with akadama or lava rocks. You can either choose akadama as your top dressing or red lava rocks as your top dressing. So now let's test how fast the water drains through the soil that we have just mixed. In fact, there are many succulent soil mix on the market, and they will all do a great job for you if you take your own climate into account. Furthermore, every succulent grower I know has their own favorite recipe for their own soil mix. So just pay attention to your plants. They will tell you if they love their new home. So that's all for today about how I do my succulents and cactus mix. Take it as a guide, and it is not necessary to follow what I do here. If you like my video, do subscribe to my channel, and see you soon. Bye!